I'm Tracy Osborne, and you're listening to the Daring Woman podcast. Imagine the story of a generation being altered by women who were empowered to live their truth and in turn can empower others to live theirs. It's time to rewrite the narrative. Hi, ladies. Welcome to another episode of the Daring Woman podcast. I am your host, Tracy Osborne, and I have this is going to be quite the interesting call. I really can't wait to dive into this interview. Was author Beverly Willett, and I want to read a snippet from her book that was sent over to me by her assistant or publisher. And her book is called Disassembly Required. So listen to this. I scrolled to voicemail on my husband's cell phone. Instantly, I heard a woman's voice I'd never heard before. I love you. Call me at home, the voice said. My hand trembled. I inhaled my tears and stuffed my wails inside so the children, one floor above, wouldn't hear. Want to come over tomorrow and have a little time to be private instead of meeting at the office, the voice continued. Fear exploded in my chest. I couldn't swallow. I wanted to bolt the doors and keep my family in suspended animation, safe and rolled up in their covers until I could figure out what to do next. Can you imagine, ladies? Oh my God. Beverly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tracy. It's great to be here.
Okay, so, I can think of a million things that I probably would have done right about that moment, but I'd like to hear what you did.
Well, in that moment, I think that I was paralyzed. That's probably the best way to put it. I was paralyzed because it completely came out of nowhere. My husband had come home late the night before, wouldn't tell me where he was, and so I couldn't sleep, got up in the middle of the night, found a cell phone, and you just read a portion of what I heard sitting at the kitchen table while everyone else was still asleep. So I was paralyzed, and I didn't run up and wake him up, and I think that in that moment, and I think that this goes to part of the heart of my book, is that women are often the fixers. We do so much. We juggle so much. We take care of so much. We want to keep it all together and make it keep working and keep all the pieces. The pieces float away. We grab them. We want to put them back together. And so I think, I was really struggling with, how do I fix this? What do I do to fix this? And because it was something that was totally foreign to me, I had no idea it was happening, I didn't even know where to begin. My brain couldn't even go to a place to figure out, where do I begin? If just a little backstory on leading up to this and what happened after is that, I grew up in a very small rural town, and I was reared on what many of us are, and that is the American dream. You work hard, you achieve, you find your soulmate, have kids. I did it all. I was first in my family to go to college. Then I went to law school. I was among the first wave of women really going out to law school. And then somebody offered me a job in New York City. It was like a dream come true. I had this path that we are told that we can have. I found who I thought was my soulmate. I have children. I have this beautiful home. I had been working as a lawyer, and then I took some time off to stay home with the children. He got a wonderful job. We're making lots of money. And then it just came crashing down one day. And the moment that it came crashing down was the moment in the book that you just read from.
Right. Yeah, when it all just kind of sprang to light one night. Hello, this is happening. God, I don't think I could even imagine. I watch a lot of guilty pleasures here. I watch a lot of court TV. I usually just have it on in the background during the day when I'm working, but I see the couples and stuff, and I'm just like, thinking, holy cow, how did they get to this point in their relationship where they're just so toxic? But you never actually got to that point. If what I'm understanding is correct, you were just going along thinking everything was peachy keen.
Well, I wouldn't say peachy keen. We certainly had issues in our marriage and we'd had troubles in our marriage. We had been married for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't have a marriage for 20 years without going through difficulties
Absolutely.
and lulls and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
I mean, so certainly that happened, but I grew up with a track record of no divorces in my family, people facing many difficulties and illnesses and losses of jobs. And so I grew up with models of couples that survived a lot of heartache and a lot of hardships. And so that was something that I knew was possible. And I knew it was also possible in my own life because we had surmounted certain difficulties. So I really believed that this was one that we could surmount too. I mean, a lot of people would say to me, well, how could you love someone, who didn't love you and was betraying you? It's very, very hard not to go to that place of hate, of retribution, of anger. And, I had been studying meditation for many years, and I'm so glad that I had that practice because intuitively I knew that if I was going to go to those places, it was going to make it worse. So I really tried hard not to go to those places. Of course, sometimes I got angry. I mean, that was normal. It was a horrible situation. But I think that was very important to me and to my ultimate recovery, which took a long time, essentially. But I didn't stop loving my ex-husband or my husband then, merely because he'd done one of the most horrible things I think a spouse can do, to betray you. I mean, that just goes to the very heart of your relationship. And it also goes to the very heart of who you are, because it's you all of a sudden start thinking you are not worthy. This is the person that's doing something wrong, but you think you're the problem and you're not worthy of this love. So that was very, very painful. But I wanted to save my marriage if I could. I believed that it was possible to save my marriage and get through this. So I went through a long process in divorce where I was trying to save my marriage. It was 6 years. Not to get into all the details, but ultimately I was not able to. Ultimately, we were divorced. At that point, I thought, well, the next thing I need to do is to keep as much stable as possible in this completely situation that has wreaked havoc in our life. And that was, I need to keep our home because that will give us some stability from which to recover. We can stay in our neighborhood. The kids can stay in their schools. Our church is a block away. Our neighbors are wonderful. So I fought for the house and ultimately got the house. Fast forward, life as a single mom, taking care of the 2 kids, working, renting out a part of the house. And what happened was in 2013, one day it's like I woke up and everything had changed. I'd gotten older. My ex had moved on. I don't know whether he had married a third time yet or whether it was that year or the next year. My one daughter had graduated from college, was out on her own. The next daughter was about to go, and I could no longer afford the mortgage. So I had been this woman who I'd been a wife, I'd been a lawyer, and by that time, the legal market had tanked too, so I didn't have a career. I was temping. Mother, and then who was I without all of this stuff? And I was about to lose the house because I had to put it on the market. That was a real awakening for me, and it was an awakening for me that I had been holding on to all this pain. Well, not all of it, but I mean, I had done some work, obviously, over the past decade, but there was still so much pain and heartache inside me. And I didn't realize it until about a decade after my ex-husband left the marriage.
Wow. I think we get to a point where the wound is numb, and so we kind of just think, okay, well, I don't feel it, so therefore it must be gone, when the truth is it's just numb, but it hasn't actually healed.
It's numb, and we also do things we do things to push it away.
Yeah.
and bury it and suppress it. And I think also just the busyness of life and all the things that we need to do. And as I said, the fixer, the mother, all the things that we need to do to take care of the family and the home and keep as many pieces together and going as possible doesn't really give us the time to fully grieve. And I think that was a big part of what I learned, is that, wow, I hadn't really grieved the loss of my marriage, the getting older, the loss of my career, the loss of the kids don't need me every day, and the
Right.
kids have grown up. I hadn't done that, and I realized that I needed to do that. And I spent probably about a year, cleaning out my house, putting it on the market, getting rid of it, and grieving all of these losses and facing all these things that I hadn't really wanted to take a hard look at in my life.
That makes so much sense, because I know I do this. I've done the same thing. When Mark died in May, I thought that I was doing it right, and I allowed myself to just cry and sleep and do whatever I want. And then I threw myself into my work, and next thing I know, I've taken on 4 different certification courses, this, that, and the other thing. I got a new puppy on top of all the other animals that I've already got. I just all of a sudden created all this chaos in my life to take my mind away from the pain and the grieving and the who am I now? What happens now? And now here we are 5 months later, and I'm just sitting here thinking, oh Lord, how do I get rid of this chaos now? Because I think, like you, I'm waking up and it's like, oh, okay, now I've created this mess, and I've got to clean this up. But I mean, it's obviously different from your situation, but the premise, I think, is kind of the same.
I think it is. And first of all, I just want to say I didn't know that, and I'm really sorry. That's a huge, huge thing that you're going to be dealing with for a long time, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And I think that this process for me allowed me to look at what we do in our culture. And what we do in our culture is we try and keep the pain away, and we try and fill up this hole. We've got this huge hole, and we try and fill it up. So if we're talking about relationships,
Mm-hmm.
just look at the number of second and third marriages, and the statistics on how they fare get worse and worse the more that you add on. The second marriages are like 66% divorce rate. The third are 74%. So that alone is an indicator that we're trying to take this hole that we have from the loss of another relationship and fill it with the second or third relationship. And that doesn't work. We can't do retail therapy. We can't, all of these things that we try and do to fix it. We have to. I just went on this retreat, and of course this is very cliche, but it was a reminder that came through that everything that we are afraid of, if we are really going to transform our life, we have to face those fears, and we have to walk straight through them. We cannot avoid any of them. And I think for me that last year was looking at, okay, what are all the things that I have been afraid of in my life? Well, a lot of them I couldn't do anything about. We didn't want to get older in our culture. That's a huge one. We're all going to get older in our culture. We don't want our kids to grow up because we're having a wonderful time being a mommy, as I was. Well, that's not going to happen. There are things outside our control, loss of relationships,
Mm-hmm.
economy. All of that creates change. And I think that we're very resistant to one of the main components of life, and that is that life changes and things change every single moment, every single day. And we're trying to avoid that change because we're very afraid, because because that creates an unknown. It creates an unknown, and it creates an uncertainty in our lives. So we want certainty, but we really don't have any certainty. And I think that completely blew me away. It's so simple, but it blew me away. And so what I wound up doing is I wound up testing little things. Oh my gosh, look at all this stuff in my house, I've been holding on to and afraid to lose in the divorce. And what if I start testing the waters here of my fears, and giving things away. And as I started testing my fears and each one of them, I found that I started feeling better. It was exactly the opposite of what I thought was going to happen. I thought that it was going to create more pain in my life because more loss was going to lead to more pain. And it didn't happen. I started, and then people said, well, so where are you going to move? Where are you going to go? And I thought, well, the natural thing, right, is to say, I better find an apartment. I better whatever. But what's the opposite of the normal thing we're going to do? And that is to say, I don't know. I'm going to wait and see what happens. And maybe I'm not going to immediately plant roots again once I've spent all this time digging them up. And once I started playing with these ideas, and I'd sort of test the waters with people. Some people who are friends of mine said, oh, no, you shouldn't do that. Absolutely. You've got to have a place to live. You've got to be certain about your future. And I think maybe they were uncertain about their own, and so it kind of scared them. And then there were other people that said, wow, I wonder what that would be like. And I started thinking to myself, well, gee, I wonder what that might be like. And the more I kept with that frame of mind, I actually just started feeling better. I started feeling better, and the pain started leaving my life.
I like that. I like that. I'm sitting here thinking, okay, what would my life be like if I did something like that? I've got a ways to go yet, but and
we can't always make huge changes like that. I mean, I think my situation was, the kids were out of the house.
Right.
I transitioned into a writing career, and I really wanted to hold on to that, and eventually I wrote this book. So I think I had some more flexibility because I was older and there were certain responsibilities. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm certainly, but I think this can be at least a template for a lot of people in midlife, where you're having a lot of these changes go on, and some of these responsibilities you don't have anymore. And even if you're younger, I think there's always a place, there's always room in your life to let go of something, to face some kind of fear, and also to kind of play with that as a way of leading your life, so that when the next change comes along, the next loss or heartache, you have a little bit of familiarity with facing it and getting to know it. Really getting to know it, not running away from it, saying, "Ooh, let me just see what that, let me see what that uncomfortable feeling is like. Let me just be with that uncomfortable feeling for a while instead of running away from it."
Yeah. I like that. Letting go isn't loss necessarily. It really isn't, especially how you were talking about the material things.
Right.
As I look around at all the piles of clutter I've accumulated in the last 5 months. But
well, Marie Kondo says, she said, you hold on to whatever brings you joy. And I'm like, none of this stuff doesn't bring you joy. No.
No, none of this brings me joy. But yeah, so
Yeah, I like what you said. Letting go doesn't equate to loss. It doesn't.
Yeah.
And I think in our culture we tend to think, well, no, that how can that possibly be because
Right.
it's counterintuitive. We think, well, okay, so go test it and see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things that Mark and I were doing before he passed away was working on downsizing and minimalizing, because our plans were, once everybody was grown and out of the house, to move into a tiny home. And that's still my plan. I may even go tinier than what he and I had originally talked about. But so, when you do something like that, you definitely have to be a lot more um, particular about the stuff that you get, because you don't have a whole lot of room for just
Right.
stuff. And that's exactly what it is. It's just stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah,
we
you're right.
attach meanings to it, but we don't accumulate it necessarily with the meaning already attached to it.
Right.
Right.
Right. And, I got rid of a lot of stuff. And when I came here, I mean, I certainly brought some things with me from the past that,
Sure.
I might pass on to my children. But I really think that I had done the work of not being afraid to let it go. I mean, because I let go of so much. And the new things that I have, I literally look around and I say, okay, so if that was gone tomorrow, how would I feel? And I I I wouldn't feel bad. It
Right.
doesn't mean that I don't have some pleasure. I mean, we all have pleasure in our surroundings and our friends and all these things. I mean, that's not a bad thing. Joy and pleasure, I mean, that's all good, but is it going to cause me pain if it changes and I don't have it any longer? I think that's really the key.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, wow, this has been fantastic talking with you. And it's given me a few ideas of some blog posts I need to write, apparently, and some journaling I need to do. But
Well, it's an ongoing thing for me. I mean,
it's
I
one thing
realize
for all of us,
it is.
really.
Yeah. I mean, it's not like, okay, so I did this thing and it's done, because I realized that next year I'm coming up on 7 years since I sold the house at the end of next year. And I'm already feeling like some things bubbling up inside of me that I've already taken on that I need to face again and let go of. So
Yeah.
I really think it's an ongoing process, but I'm not scared like I used to be.
Right. It's I think once you go through the process, and you've faced those fears once, then when it's time to start going through that process again of letting go, whether it's people, things, you know, parts of your life, whatever it is that you have to let go of, I think we we look at it more as an excitement and as an adventure. At least I do,
Right.
because I sit here and I start thinking. I mean, now I'm like all of a sudden excited again. Now I want to get up and just go and start purging, because it's it is change and it's new, and new can be so exciting. Think about when you first started dating somebody, or you first started your business. It's new and it's exciting and it's all you can think about. It's all you dream about. The first thing you think of when you wake up and the last thing you think of when you go to bed is that change and that excitement that comes along with it. Um, and so
Well,
that's how we have to kind of embrace change.
exactly. And I also think too that, if we have too much clutter, and I don't mean necessarily physical clutter, but too
No.
much clutter in our lives,
Yeah.
we don't open up these opportunities to have these experiences. And so I think that's how I'm thinking. Okay, I'm feeling like this, oh, there's something, especially with my next book or whatever. That
Hmm.
means that I need to declutter some other things in my life to allow that next thing to have time to grow and
Right.
emerge in my life. And that's again, that's change. But it's
Mhm.
absolutely the the normal way of life. That's what
Yeah.
life is.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It is constant and never-ending change. Or as Tony Robbins says, constant and never-ending improvement. Um, but yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic, and I can't wait to read your book. Ladies,
Thank
for
you.
those of you who are listening, the book is called Disassembly Required. If you are on the website, just click on the book cover below, and it will take you to where you can go get a copy of it. If you're listening on one of our partner stations, we love you. Come to the website, www.daringwomaninc.com/stories. And then you'll see Beverly's post there. Goodness, there goes my brain for a minute. And you get all her information. So definitely come back over to the website and get that and grab your copy of her book. I can't wait to read it.
Thank you, Tracy. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to do next.
Yeah. I've got so many irons in the fire that I'm like, I don't know which one to pull out next. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to figuring out what I'm going to do next too. But thank you again for joining us and sharing your story of heartache and heartbreak and finding who you truly are and recreating, building a new life basically. So thank you.
Thank you, Tracy.
And ladies, as always, thank you so much for listening. I can't do this show without you, because otherwise I would just be talking to these wonderful people and it would just be in my ears instead of everybody's ears. So thank you for listening. As always, make sure you join us on the Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Daring Woman. That is our sanctuary. It's our little place where we can talk and chit chat and support each other, and everything is just safe. What stays in that group, or what happens in that group, stays in that group. So we will see you over on Facebook in our group, and we will talk to you next week on the show.